Thing one tonight, we've heard a lot about Donald Trump's antics on the golf course, and really, what more do you need to know once you've seen him drive a golf cart on the green? But there is an entire book by Rick Riley filled with stories of Trump's cheating, and now we have a news story from an incredible piece of reporting by the Washington Post about Trump and one of his fathers-in-law, Melania's dad, Victor Noves. The anecdote comes from two former housekeepers at the president's Bedminster Club. They're undocumented immigrants who have come forward to tell their story about what their life was like working for Trump. They say that Trump would regularly give his used cast-off clothing to Victor Noves because they're the same size. That's Trump and Melania's father. And yeah, you could definitely wear the same clothes. But as the former employees told the Post, one day in 2013, Victor Noves went out to play golf wearing one of Trump's discarded red baseball caps, which is apparently a big no-no because, quote, when Trump spotted him on the fairway, he blew up and he ordered his father-in-law in front of other golfers to remove the hat and get off the course. Melania's father. When Noves returned to the clubhouse, he threw the hat on the ground and cursed Trump. Well, those sound like totally normal family dynamics, but if you think the rule about the red hat is weird, wait till you hear the one about the orange makeup. That's Thing 2 in 60 seconds. Two undocumented immigrants who worked as housekeepers at Donald Trump's Bedminster, New Jersey golf club shared some interesting details about the president's particularities with the Washington Post this week. And among these strange details about how he likes his boxers ironed and how he would throw things on the floor when he wanted them to be discarded is his strange 2.5 rule. For instance, according to former housekeepers, Trump wanted his bedroom bureau at all times 2 full containers of white Tic Tacs and 1 container that was half full. The former employees go on to describe how the rule also applied to the face makeup that Trump apparently slathered on daily. 2 full containers, 1 half full container. Quote, even if it meant the housekeepers had to regularly bring new shirts from the pro shop because of the rust-colored stains on the collars. Since this news broke, the company that produces the makeup, called Bronx Colors, but strangely based out of Switzerland, has taken full advantage of the free PR, posting this graphic on their homepage, offering a special promotion on Trump's exact product, their Boosting Hydrating Concealer. 1 tube free with every purchase. The shade is, of course, Orange BHC06.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation, the beginnings of that investigation. Somebody picked an orange out of a refrigerator and you don't like it, so let's go and impeach him. The bulb that we're being forced to use, number one, to me, most importantly, the light's no good. I always look orange.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.